right, everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about exploding kneecaps, boat accidents, malfunctioning fuses, and our top 5 childhood injuries. So, Chris, you know, in the last episode, we did something that we normally never do. We actually teased what's going to happen in this coming episode, right? We actually had the equivalent of a, dare I say, a teaser. Oh, my gosh. Maybe we're finally figuring out how this podcast thing works, Chris. Maybe we're finally learning some very simple marketing tools that most people already know. But what did we tease? We teased the idea that in this episode, right, we're actually going to be talking about our top 5 biggest, most insane injuries during the 70s and 80s, which plays pretty well into the last episode, or from the last episode, right, which was our biggest mistakes, the dumbest things we ever did. And sure enough, many of those things can lead to injuries, right? So, I'm going to say, without further ado, really, further ado. Did I suddenly just become the nerdiest effing guy on the planet? I'm going to be talking about ruining the day any second now and other things, and using the word per se too much.
I'm just gonna let it go. I'm just going to let it go because I think you kind of lost me when you said something to the fact that we'd learned something, because I don't know. I mean, I think that was giving us way too much credit. But yes, be that as it may, I'll see your further, without further ado, and a be that as it may, I think,
and raise you an indubitably. Okay,
right.
Good.
And we can just start piling on that. Like I said, this is the Mike Douglas show. And today's special guests are Joanne Worley and John Lennon and Yoko Ono, which again I think was an actual thing. But anyway,
wow, that is a very strange poll. Do you remember a scenario where is that possible that those 3 people were in the same room together at one point?
I'm throwing the Joanne Worley just because that was I don't think so, but I am pretty confident that John and Yoko made it on to the Mike Douglas show.
I realize we're getting sidetracked here a bit, but I did once make a connection between Joanne Worley's gimmick and Charles Nelson Riley's gimmick, right?
Oh,
they both had a gimmick, and do you know what the gimmick was for both of them?
Wasn't it just kind of like I was going to say spastic. Can I say spastic?
You can, as long as it's not a retarded spastic anything,
okay.
Right?
Or as long as I don't call anybody a spaz. But
right.
It's sort of this herky-jerky sort of, oh my God, is that what does that sound about right? That just
for sure that's part of it.
Stammering, I don't know, energetic, excited response or statement, I guess. Kind of. Right.
No, like we talked about in the past, all of these character actors and some of them, like Brett Summers, were only known for nothing, right? They're just like the Kim Kardashians of the world today, where you're like, what did they ever do other than star on Match Game? And by the way, people at home, I know we've strayed from the from the topic here, but we have to work this out for just one quick second.
43 seconds. Good work, Jeff.
Okay. Here's what they did. They both had yeah, you're right. Kind of a spastic thing. But with Charles Nelson Riley, he would enunciate certain sentences with "ho ho." That was his thing. Ho ho. And then with Joanne Worley, it was oh, right? She would just kind of do this like she's winding up. So they both had this very I'm sorry, are you having a stroke? Do you need help? Kind of a thing that they would do. And that was their trademark. That was their signature. How's that for a topper? Ho ho! That was my HooDoo impression, everybody, from the TV show Lidsville, if anybody's keeping track. Man, we just opened up this show with 15 deep polls. I'm very proud of us. And we haven't even gotten started yet.
Although I have to say, it kind of veered into, for a second, I thought you were going to do a Snagglepuss with a Heavens to Murgatroyd, right? Because it was that same sort of thing. You were kind of so. Immediately I saw that sort of. Did Charles Nelson Riley do the voice of Snagglepuss?
Interesting,
Maybe
you would
not.
say Snagglepuss, because here's a deep pull on that. He was really the character Snagglepuss, the cartoon, stage left, stage right, even right. That was a takeoff on the Cowardly Lion, who was played by Bert Lahr, really famous character actor in the 1930s. Right. And Bert Lahr actually sued that studio and said, "Hey, effers, that's my gimmick, and stop gimmicking my gimmick, or pay me money." I don't blame him, man. That was a pretty straightforward ripoff. Yeah.
So there was no like lawsuit between Joanne and Charles Nelson as far as, kind of like
I don't know,
like sampling, like a hey Queen telling Vanilla Ice to back the F off because you basically stole our, Under Pressure riff. But anyway, no. Again, we're at 5 minutes and 45 seconds. So yeah, let's just jump in.
Wow. Okay.
And talk about that. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving. Let's give the audience what they want.
If we've shown nothing in the run times of our episodes, it's that we are less than predictable, right? I think that last episode, the top fives of the dumbest things we've ever done, we went way into crazy town territory. We actually broke an hour on that one. So, all right, guys, here we go. I can't promise we won't get sidetracked again. That is kind of the whole point of the show. But this will be our top five most insane injuries during the 70s and 80s. We can even creep into the 90s a little bit, Chris. I've only seen a glimpse of your list, but I don't really know the details. So, and I don't know what order you're putting them in, and you may have added some new ones. So I'm going to go ahead and start with you. This would now be the fifth most insane or craziest injury that you sustained during the 70s or 80s.
It's a pretty long list, unfortunately. And, and I think insane, crazy. I mean, but I think the one I think I'll probably, I think I probably just have to start with was I broke my thumb. Okay. And I broke my thumb 3 times in the stupidest ways possible. Okay. So I guess this is technically it's 3 injuries, but it's 1 injury because it's literally the same freaking thumb. And I don't think I've ever showed you, but to this day, the thumb is actually deformed in the right part of it. You could, and again, it has this big lump because it's been broken 3 times. Like your thumbs are symmetrical and nice. If you hold your hands out, mine are not. One is somewhat mutated. I've had people that look at it and go, "Oh, I broke it 3 times." But like with the stupidest, one time I broke a thumb but broke it the first time playing flag football. Okay. There's not a lot of injuries with flag football, but I grabbed the flag and I had it and somehow it got caught and it just yanked. And then I tripped, and one of those like slow motion trips where you like kind of like think you can, catch yourself and you're not going to hit. And my feet was just kind of hitting and this is at the dirt. This is in the dirt on the upper field in Persia.
Do you want me to do the sound effect, Chris?
No, I don't need your Michael Winslow thing, but I think everybody has
okay.
Where it was like heavy foot, boom, boom, boom. Before I finally ate it, I'm tripping in slow motion, stopping for a drink in the middle, going, whoa, 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 and just slammed right and just landed on a point right onto, the sand.
That's terrible. And I don't do well with broken bones.
It just popped, and it was just like, it hurt like a mother. Of course, the fortunate thing is that PE was the last class, and so I could go home and immediately that thumb's broken, straight to the ER. The second time I broke that thumb was, again, playing baseball and trying, getting picked off of first base and diving back into the base and it was the same thumb and just popped, just like I broke my thumb. All right. And I knew it then and there.
You're just a thumbs first kind of a guy. Chris, would you say that up until recently you lead with your thumb? Was that what it was back then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
And I have those really straight thumbs. Like there's 2 kind of I guess there's 2 different thumbs that people have. They have the straight thumbs or the hitchhiker thumb. I'd never looked at your thumbs, like the one that kind of bends back, that keep on trucking kind of. Yeah, it looks like you got the hitchhiker thumb. And then that means you probably have the attached earlobe as well, right? Because then straight thumbs, detached earlobes,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. What now?
thumbs.
There's different types of earlobes? I'm unaware of this.
Yeah, there's some that are kind of dangly. And then the other ones that are called attached, where they don't dangle as much, where I can't see, So there's, I think, again, yours look like yours are pretty attached. Yeah. Yeah. So Google it.
I did not know that. Okay.
You know that now. Okay. And then the last time, this thumb had healed, and I broke it falling off of my bike. Literally, like a week after I had the splint off, I broke it again. And there you go. So just stupid. And to this day, again, my thumb is deformed, and I broke it 3 times, and none of the stories are cool. Yeah, 2 of them I was technically playing sports. Falling off your bike is never cool. But I can remember even the 3rd time, I think I kind of got yelled at because I wasn't, how could you break your thumb when you just got your splint off and everything else? And so that's number 5 for me, the dumb thumb injuries, which happened 3 times.
Yeah, I was going to ask, were your parents pretty close to maybe buying you a helmet or anything like that? Something to wear just on a consistent basis, or no?
Oh, this is pre-helmet time. But what would a helmet have done?
Okay.
Right? It's like
I don't know.
I needed some sort of big hockey.
I just think that's funny that, we don't ever break things on purpose, my God, but that is such a parental reaction to be like, hey, you just got out of the splint, dum-dum. What are you doing breaking it again? Like that is such an annoyance and a concern to a parent. And you're like, oh, I'm sorry. I tried to break my thumb. But that is funny, though, that Chris took his 5th most insane injury or craziest injury and divided it into 3 parts, because it's not enough to break it one time, Chris. You're going to break it 3 times. I love that story. That's good.
It's like a 3-part question. The best part, or maybe the worst part, and again, this was a dad of our generation. My dad's, you run around and you get hurt, and your mom is concerned and worried and upset, and oh my God. And my dad, the first words out of my dad's mouth were, "God damn it."
That is so funny. That's awesome.
Yeah, I know.
Right on.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
God damn it, Chris.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I didn't almost jump off a cliff or set a friend on fire. Right. I mean, but I don't know. All he's thinking about was copays at that point.
I don't. Yeah, that's right. I don't think anything screams the 1970s more than that reaction from your dad. Nowadays, it's you got the helicopter parents, and you've talked about this many times, making sure that all the food that they get sent to school with in their little is in one of those little refrigerated packs, and has its own temperature system, and God forbid anything should spoil, and here's your medicine. And if they have a sniffle, making sure they're, pulled out of school immediately. Your dad, you literally come in with your thumb pointing in the wrong direction, and his first instinct is, God damn it.
Now I can't. Yeah. I was planning on going to Builder's Emporium, and now
that's right.
I had screwed up his afternoon.
And by the way, I wanted to give you credit for something you just said under your breath, but it was a good poll. The Keep On Truckin' reference, when you talked about having different types of thumbs. The Keep On Truckin' t-shirt that I did own one. I'm not sure if you did, but I really did own a Keep On Truckin' t-shirt.
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent. All right. So how about okay, let's go. Number 5. Let's hear it. Let's hear Jeff Phil's injury here.
In the last episode, I talked about dumb decisions, and one of those dumb decisions was having fights with bottle rockets where we would launch them at each other. I mentioned
there
that
were a lot of fights.
One time, that's right. Well,
and I never knew you were that violent. I probably would have considered our friendship a little differently had I known.
Yeah. It's not that I myself want to promote violence, but for some reason as a kid, violent activities were okay with me. I would participate for whatever reason with no problem. And I was the recipient of violence many times, as I've said, due to my, just constant smartassery. So all deserved. But so I mentioned that one of the victims of the bottle rocket fights was someone that got smacked in the kneecap with a bottle rocket and literally buckled over in pain. And at the time, I thought, wow, the kneecap made you buckle over like that? That's a weird injury. Of course, the sociopath that I am, I'm not worried about his health or well-being. I'm just thinking, I wouldn't have expected that to happen until I was on, I think the name of the team was Johnny Grubs. That was my team when I was in Little League. And again, in my league, you guys, I think I mentioned this before, we didn't have cool names like the Red Sox or the Mets or the Padres. We were the names of our sponsors. So one of my teams was Viva Realty, and we would play Jack in the Box and 7-Eleven. That was a really weird low rent type of a league. Yeah. So I think I was on Johnny Grubb's Sports World was the team I was on. And I was playing right field because I sucked. And line drive, right? The guy smacks a line drive straight to the kneecap. And this was probably about 2 weeks after I witnessed the bottle rocket kneecap injury. And guess what I got to figure out? Exactly what happens in your brain when you get hit that hard in the kneecap. Oh, my God. I don't see kneecap injuries too often on the streaming networks, right? When you're looking at Instagram or anything, I see lots of taken in the nuts injuries. You don't see kneecaps too often, but let me explain to you what happens when you get hit hard enough in the kneecap. The kneecap kind of floats, right? So when it compresses and gets smacked like that, everything goes blank. You literally see stars, even though you did not sustain a head injury, but it feels like a head injury, and it knocks the wind out of you completely. And all you can do is just enjoy yourself falling to the ground. You have no control over it. Your body just buckles. And I just smacked into the ground, face planted, and then just laid there in the fetal position for what felt like 2 hours. They had to pick me up and haul me off the field. Probably they wanted to at that point anyway. I really was not a good baseball player at that point in my career. So holy shit, man. And then just the bruise. I mean, it spread all the way up my thigh. It was insane. It looked like I had been on a pirate ship for the last 3 months and was suffering from gangrene about 2 days later, right? Dude, I'm not going to say the most pain, but almost the most pain I've ever experienced in that split second.
Well, I mean, let's not take the kneecap lightly, right? I mean, isn't that even a term? It's like, oh, they got kneecapped.
No, let's not.
That means you get kneecapped. It's like, you're out. You're taken out. That's a serious injury. You don't just walk away and we got kneecapped. That means that was like a devastating injury with a permanent effect.
Well, it didn't stop me, Chris, from after the game limping over to the snack bar to get my Abba Zabba and my Chicka Stick. So I definitely, and I think your favorite was the Pizza Hot Pocket concoction that they had.
Oh, the Pizzarino.
The Pizzarino,
it was about 4,000 degrees. It was like ragu, a slice of, fake processed cheese and a hot dog bun.
We're just getting started. We've got a triple broken thumb. And by the way, those injuries are so 70s. Flag football and
falling off my bike.
Falling off your bike and something sports related with baseball. Very, very 70s of you. Let's go into number 4, the fourth funkiest injury you sustained.
Well, again, I think I sprained my ankle playing on a balcony of all things with my cousins, and my grandfather had this house and that had a great view. It was on a hill called Dictionary Hill in Spring Valley, and you could see all the way when it wasn't cloudy. You could see all the way to Mexico. It's an amazing view, and he had this balcony that was probably not OSHA compliant, let's just say. But again, we were all kids, and it was literally sort of a little rickety, a little shaky. And my cousins and I had the great idea where we would climb on one side of the balcony, and there was a drop of, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 feet. So we would grab the top of the balcony and then slide down and slide and hold on, and then just basically slide down like we were sliding down like a firefighter or something like that, going down a pole, and then release. My cousins were better at it, so before I could even try it, because they kind of perfected it before I got there, and I just off trying to climb up, I didn't even make it. Where I just basically, I got one hand on it, and I just kind of went over the side and landed on my ankle. Because it was like my aunt thinking because I did get hurt because nobody knew what we were doing, and obviously, and I hobbled around for a couple of days, and again, it was just like it wasn't it wasn't bad enough to get crutches, which I think that crutches had a certain amount of cachet, right? Because it was just basic. Oh, you're on crutches. What happened? You're like walking around, and it's like a big deal. And you got a cool story. This was a stupid story. Number one, I was just limping with like an ace bandage that was falling off half the time. Because I swear to God, when my dad found out, I'm sure his response was, "God damn it."
God damn it, Chris. Now let me ask you this: what was the extent of the injury? Like, how bad was it?
It was really swollen, and it bruised. But within, again, young enough, see, that was the one part about some of these injuries. And you get injured now, and you may never recover, right? You get injured at our age, and it's just like, well, I'm going to deal with this for the rest of my life, right? But in the sense of, pretty resilient. A couple of days later, I was fine. Like I said, I didn't even get, I think they were like, nah, he doesn't need to go to the ER. Yeah, he's okay. It's like, let's just put some ice on it, elevate it. And that's just, and again, a day or so later, I was okay. But I had, like I said, I had about a day and a half where I couldn't really walk. I couldn't run. I couldn't jump. I couldn't run around with all the other kids. I couldn't jump off the balcony or attempt to jump off the balcony. So that was my, number 4, my stupid sprained ankle.
And for those at home playing along, balconies were very common in tract homes. My house, which was what we call a tri-level, and I know you're familiar with that. I know our buddy, I think Sean, had a tri-level, right? Which is just a weird arrangement of different stories in a house. But yeah, a balcony that was usually about 7 or 8 feet off the ground. And I cannot even, there's no way I could count how many times I jumped off the balcony in the backyard. I don't have any stories of getting injured, but man, was that fun to do. And my favorite though for you, Chris, is you're all excited. You're trying something new. You want to be cool, right? These were your cousins, right? You said, yeah. And he just does one attempt and already eats shit and then injures himself. And the biggest indignation back then wasn't so much how much it hurt or how injured you got. It was, man, now I can't play with my friends. That was the ultimate punishment, was not being able to hang out with your buddies and play for the next 3 days.
Even more in the sense that now I screwed it up for everybody else, and nobody else can F around on the balcony anymore.
Yeah, right? Thanks, Chris.
That was the worst part.
God damn it, Chris.
Thanks for ruining it. Right.
Well, Chris, as foolish as you felt with the ankle, I'll just jump right into my my next injury. This would be number 4 for me. The fourth, not number 4, but the 4th most interesting injury as we work our way up the list. This was a bicycle, no surprise. And my bicycle was kind of a piece of shit, as some of our bicycles were. Now, this bicycle, Chris, this wasn't a cool motocross bicycle that became popular later on in the late 70s and 80s when you and I were growing up. This would be one of the shittier ones with the banana seat, and might even have had a sissy bar on it. I'm not sure. But it had the ape hanger handlebars, which are super loopy and high, almost like you're in a chopper. And it had the really crappy hand grips. And to say that those hand grips came off easy is an understatement, man. They came off all the time. So not really great when you're trying to pop a wheelie and pull back on the handlebars to have the handle grip come off in your hand. So on a beautiful summer day, as we're heading down to the lake to start our day on a beautiful weekend, first thing I did when I got to the end of my street was pop a wheelie, or tried to. Pulled back to get my front wheel off the ground. What happens? Not one, but both handle grips come off into my hand, right? So that makes me, of course, eat shit and fall backwards and smack my head on the ground. But that's not the worst indignation, right? Now I'm standing up, but my legs are all tangled up in the bike itself, right? So just to add insult to injury, or injury to insult, or just make myself more of an ass. And by the way, a crowd has already started forming of other kids on the street, not to come to my aid, but really just to witness it and soak it in, right? Because entertainment was of high value back then. I trip over my own bike and impale my chin on the open end of my handlebar that no longer has a rubber covering on it. So I just literally impale it, and blood everywhere. The actual circular end of the handlebar permanently scarred into the bottom of my chin. and I had to pull my chin practically off the handlebar. That's how bad it was. So I just wish I had been, I wish we had videotape back then, Chris, to have watched it. But to say that it was dramatic is an understatement.
Okay, there's so much to unpack from this one.
There's a lot.
First of all, phenomenal job with the foreshadowing when you talked about the hand grips and how easily they came off. I thought, okay, this is all right. I see Act 2 coming up, right? But then, you topped that because I thought, all right, it was bad enough that the hand grips it caused you to lose control and lose your grip. Right, and steering and everything else, but then one of the handlebars gets you on the chin, right?
Yeah.
It was like that. You were like that Wile Coyote when he fell off the cliff and then he burst into flames and then he got hit with a cannonball and then a safe landed on him. Right, it was all these things just kind of something like that.
It's exactly
phenomenal job of that. Although I do have a question, and maybe it's for another time. But the first thing you said, that again, as you were doing a great job of describing the bike, I wonder, can we say Sissy bar anymore? I guess probably not. I guess they don't make bikes like that anymore. So we could just let that one go.
I don't know. Maybe cisgender bar. I don't know what you call it now. I don't know if my bike had pronouns, but
I think we just have to let that go. But I had to pull that one out because I wanted people to know that was an actual thing. And again, there's a lot of people who will listen who will go, they will absolutely know what you're talking about. But like banana seat, they will know the same thing. Did it have a banana seat? But
yeah, the Sissy bar. Yeah,
but so many elements of that, and again, especially when you talked about everybody stopping to watch. Right. And nobody really coming to your aid. That's still out there now. And the difference being now is, everybody would have their camera out. You would end up on YouTube or somebody's TikTok and get tweeted out. You'd be a meme. Right. So I think, but the same sort of concept occurs. It's like, I'm not going to help this guy. I'm too busy watching. Now it's like, well, I'm not going to help this guy because I'm too busy using him for content. But again, that one is just, again, I can see it, I can hear it, and I love how it just kept going.
I would like to believe, in my defense, which there is none, that the only reason that I tripped on my own bike and then impaled myself onto the handlebar is because I had just sustained a pretty gnarly head injury on the initial impact of popping the wheelies. So I was still stunned, in my defense. But yeah, that was bad. It took me a while to recover. And then the blood trail from that bike all the way back to my house was awesome. As I recall, my mom came home from the grocery store and all she saw was drops of blood going across our cement driveway all the way up the steps to the door as she came home. And she's like, oh my God, please tell me that's a melted popsicle or Kool-Aid, please, God. But she was actually a lab technician and worked with blood for a living. So I think she probably knew the difference. All right. So I think that takes us to number three. Now we're getting dangerously close to some scary injuries or just inconvenient injuries. But Chris, what do you rank as number three?
Well, number three, I think, and again, and this was, I cracked my tailbone skateboarding.
Oh,
and,
God.
And for those of you, and it sounds, and I think your tailbone is your coccyx,
Coccyx.
Coccyx. There you go.
There's a dick joke in there somewhere.
There is somewhere. Trying and again, skateboarding was those things again, like we talked about. We didn't wear helmets, we didn't wear pads. We had this low. I lived. Remember my street was a long, it was a long, steep street, and we would ride down. We would call Catamaraning, right, where we would sit on our skateboards.
Oh, I forgot about that.
We would sit on our skateboards, right, and we would put our feet on our friend's skateboard. They would put their feet, and we would kind of lock hands, and we just go, right, and then you could kind of lean in one direction to sort of if you want to turn to your right, turn to your left. Anyway,
Catamaran. I forgot about that. Yeah,
so
nice.
And again, and the fact that we'd pick up a lot of speed, and then there'd be some car coming right up the road, and that we'd almost have to you'd sort of have to, I don't know, flop and roll. You just kind of have to jump off your skateboard and roll to the side.
Wow, it's like my next story. That's perfect, yes.
But that's not how I did it. It was literally just trying to jump on my skateboard and go, and I don't know what I did wrong, but it just went right out from under me. So my skateboard goes flying. My prized possession at the time, my GNS, my Gordon and Smith Warp Tail 2 with
GNS. What was it? A Warp Tail? Oh man,
Warp Tail 2 with Gullwing trucks and yo-yo
not the
wheels.
2.
Yeah, the 2, yes, and the yo-yos, Gullwings and yo-yos. I love that thing. Okay,
yo-yo wheels.
That was my prized possession, and so I jumped on it. It went flying, and I went backwards and just landed right on the concrete. I'm sure there was another goddammit in there. There was nothing I could do. And the worst part is there's absolutely nothing you could do for that. Right. It's just like, it's got to heal. And I basically stood up a lot I was just like, I'm going to eat leaning over the counter. It hurt to sit down, and you let it heal. And again, there wasn't anything cool because I didn't do it Catamaraning. I didn't do it on a ramp. I didn't do it there was that skateboard park. I don't know if you remember, it was called Oasis. It was in Mission Valley. And I didn't do it at Oasis.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I don't think we even got to go to Oasis.
No. And that was always a legend that there was one. I never saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was there. It was right. Yeah, it was right in the middle of Mission Valley, right under the 805, the way 805 would come, that overpass. And it's so stupid. The board goes flying in one direction, I go flying in the other direction, and I can't sit down for literally without pain for several weeks.
Chris, was it difficult when you went to school to try to let everyone know how your coccyx is doing?
That was in the summer, so I didn't have to worry about that.
Good. There was
That was good. I didn't have PE. No, I didn't have to sit in a desk.
I was trying to imagine your teacher announcing to everybody, Chris is going to be standing for a lot of the class because he hurt his coccyx.
I did. Right.
So I don't want anybody making any jokes about Chris's coccyx. Right. And a coccyx is a very, very serious injury. It's right there where your butt is. So Chris knows better than anybody that the coccyx is right there on the butt, right? Yep. And then she's announcing it to the whole class, and I thought that was going to be your trauma story as well. But
so there's my coccyx.
Oh my God, dude, that's horrible. You did like the Charlie Chaplin, cartoonish, like slipping on a banana peel. Right. Yeah.
And it would have gone like, wee. You would have had like that high pitch kind of.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So again, maybe from Snagglepuss. But okay, all right, let's hit your next one. Let's go.
Yeah, I did the wrong sound effect. That was a Scooby-Doo. Okay. So, yes, Chris, you always seem to segue perfectly into what I'm going to say next. No surprise, this is a skateboard injury. You guys, Chris and I are very aware of two hills or streets that were exceptionally steep that were near our high school. I grew up right next to both of them. Chris traveled to them many times, but one of them would be Wandermere and the other one would be Madra. Now, Madra is legendary because it's a hill going up to it, and then it's a super snaky hill going down the backside of it. And either side, oh man, can you get effed up? There is such potential for injury on Madra that it was legendary. I can't even think of how many trips to the hospital resulted from kids on skateboards and bikes on Madra. But here you go. I am coming home from my friend's house. This guy was Dave Waddell. I don't think he'll mind me mentioning his name here on the podcast. And he had a swimming pool. So I'm just in a bathing suit on a summer day coming back from David Waddell's house. But David, one of the fancy guys, he lived on top of Madra, right, in an area called Del Cerro. And I, like an idiot, was riding my skateboard with nothing on but a bathing suit. Bare-chested, no shoes, nothing, no protection. And
sounds like my parasailing example. But go ahead.
Thinking that my POS skateboard could handle the speed. And obviously I knew I couldn't go down the entire length of Madra. That would be too much speed. But the last third of Madra, I'm like, I'm going to go for it, man. I'm tired of walking. My feet are hot. I didn't plan ahead, right? And the sidewalk was hot and actually giving me blisters in the bottom of my feet. So I jump on my skateboard and I'm doing pretty good. And guess what happens? Of course, I get this dreaded thing back in the day called the speed wobbles, where your skateboard just is not designed for that. And it starts to wobble a little bit. And then the wobble gets more and more exaggerated, like a centrifuge, and then gunk, 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 funk. and then it just throws you. It throws you like a effing catapult. And I know I can't show people this right now, but imagine I'm flying like Superman through the air with my arms outstretched. I don't know what I thought I was doing with my arms in front of me, how that was going to help me. I land perfectly. I belly flop, you guys, on to gravel asphalt in the summertime. Just messed up, gravelly asphalt right next to a pothole. And I skip across the hot gravel and tar like a stone across a lake. My entire chest is absolutely the worst case of road rash you've ever seen. My upper thighs and my kneecaps just shredded like you took a giant fucking cheese grater to my body. And then the fun part is, after moaning in the street, and this time, Chris, there's nobody looking at me, nobody out there. And I didn't want to get up, but I had to because I was literally cooking on the ground, right? This is molten hot asphalt on a summer day. So I'm like, should I just lay here and burn? Maybe that'll cauterize the wounds. No, let me actually just get up.
Stand up.
I didn't even want to look at it. And I just held my skateboard and limped home. And again, my poor mom, when I couldn't open the door for some reason, it was locked or something. She opens the door. Oh my God. I mean, the poor thing. I mean, she almost had a fucking heart attack. It looked like I had been, survived a car accident. Yay.
Well, Jeff, again, you're building up, you're painting these great visuals. And I pictured your skateboard almost like coming apart, like at the beginning of the $6 Million Man, right?
Yeah,
when he's like,
right,
it's breaking up, right?
Yeah.
And it starts, and they have this actual footage of like an actual test crash where this thing starts just like, flipping through the air and explodes.
They did, yeah. That's
so
right.
I started picture that. And again, those things, they feel like they happen in slow motion, right? And then and so then I'm sure your mom probably gave you a bath and Bactine or something like that, which we touched on before in that regard. But yeah, ouch, because I think, again, you're wearing like thin, t-shirt or whatever you had that provided you no protection, no padding, no. And it was probably one of those wounds or those series of wounds where you've got like the gravel in it, right? There's like little black specks and there's dirt and there's gravel and you're like a walking infection in the sense
the healing process was infinitely worse than the injury. I'll take the injury anytime. That having large portions of your body slowly scab over and you can't sleep. Oh, dude, we don't have enough episodes for me to describe the recovery phase of this injury, but it was pretty good. All right. Well, skateboards, I'm curious if skateboards are going to come up again, Chris, but that would then take us, I imagine, to, wow, we're getting up there. Number 2. This is going to get serious now. So, Chris, what is your number 2, the second most crazy one?
Well, I mean, see, here's the thing, because this one, and much like talking about this one has a modern spin to it as well, because I've broken my nose 3 times. Okay.
Why 3? Why always 3?
I don't.
What is up with you?
Don't bad things happen in 3s? People die in 3s.
That is so weird that you have to do it 3 times. It's like your OCD or something. I have to break it 2 more times.
Right.
Yeah.
So first time took again, and it was a bit of a sports related, but not really. We're just throwing baseballs around, and I took my eye off it for a second, and I missed a ball that was thrown at me very hard and skimmed off my glove and hit me in the nose. Right. And right at the bridge of my nose. Okay. So it was just like, it bled, it got swollen. I didn't have to wear it. I didn't really my eyes were a little bit, a little bit puffy, but not too bad, but it hurt like a mother. Right. But you could blame it on myself because I did the thing you're not supposed to do. I took my eyes off the ball, and this was no game. This was just goofing around.
God damn it, Chris.
This was not in the game. This was nothing like that. Yeah, but there was nothing to, other than, get it examined. And it's like, it's broken in place and we're just going to move on because there's nothing to do. So the second time it broke, same spot. Okay.
My God.
Of just getting, I think, pummeled by my older brother and some of his friends in the way it's like considered like rough housing, right? But not when you're not when you're outweighed, but not when you're like 50 pounds lighter. That's not really rough housing, right? That's more like abuse. But getting tossed around and getting hit, getting a knee, right where, same spot, the bridge of my nose. Okay, so so now I think it's the second time it's been broken, and it's just like this isn't great, right? But again, nothing you can do. Pain, swelling, a little bit of puffiness, and a little bit of blood, and it's like, okay, but now I've got to stretch. I've broken my nose 2 times, and it stops. And I thought I was out. I thought I was out of the broken nose business, but then they pulled me back in. Okay, and this is years later. This is decades later.
Oh,
and last time we talked about,
I love it.
Last time we talked about how I decided to dry my son's PE shirt for school in the microwave and almost burned down my house when it burst into flames. That same son, although he was much younger, we're sitting on the couch. We'd been maybe roughhousing a little bit, and we're playing, and we're sitting on at this point, we're sitting on the couch, and he had like this big bucket that had, I don't know, Legos or something in it. And he had dumped it over, he had emptied it out. He thought that was funny. We're laughing.
I already know where this is going. I love it. Go for it.
So he then flips the bucket over and slams it onto my head. And the metal handle of the bucket, where do you think it hits me?
I'm going to guess your thumb. No? Oh, okay.
Good.
Sorry.
Nice pull. Hits me right on the bridge of my nose, Jeff. And,
oh, my God.
And my eyes started to water. A little trickle of blood came out of my nose. And I'm like, and this time I'm the one saying, God damn it. Trying to be mad because he was a toddler. And my wife was like, he broke my nose. And it's like,
oh my
he
God.
broke my nose. It's been broke. That was the thing, because I think I could probably break it. The next time you see me in person, you could probably break it inadvertently if you get the right angle. It's not an offer. Okay. It's not a request.
My violent past. I'd be happy to do that for you.
Yeah. You throw a rock at it, I guess. Or a firework. And so breaks. And at that point, and now again, this is, like I said, so I'm very sensitive to that. It's broken 3 times. I don't have a small nose to begin with, those who know me. But again, it's always the same spot, the bridge. It's been broken 3 times. You can see it on x-rays, because when you, and if you've ever had a broken bone, like your bone may heal, but like the break is always there. You know what I mean? They can see, it's like a scar. It's like a scar on your bone. And so mine looks pretty bad because it's been broken. Although I didn't get an x-ray on the last one. The best part was my son walking around telling everybody he thought it was the coolest thing, saying, I broke my daddy's nose. And it was like, yeah, he did. So again, I only have one nose, but much like breaking the same thumb 3 times, I've broken my nose on the bridge of my nose 3 times. So
did you at some point in your life get nervous when you hurt or broke anything else, thinking, well, this is just the first round, knowing full well that the universe was going to throw at least 2 more rounds at some point when you least expect it on that exact same spot on your body? Or do you just kind of repress that?
No, but I remember one time it was like, I think one of the people, one of the people involved, we were talking about fights. And like, I think a while ago, how you got into all these fights and rock fights and knife fights and all this kind of stuff.
I think at one point, knife fights. Yeah.
But later in our adolescent, or, extended adolescent years, I was trying to pull somebody back and trying to hold at a fight. And this elbow, and I was like, no, I was like that slow motion. No, I'm backing out because I'm picturing I'm going to get hit and I'm going to break my nose again. And fortunately, it was like the end of my nose, the round meaty part. And so I'm a little bit, I think now I still kind of, yes, I will lean my head back thinking, don't do it again. Please don't break it again. So anyway, so that's why. So number 2, Jeff.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
I'm loving your tales of 3. This is fascinating to me.
Inadvertent.
So for this one, you guys, we have to go on a trip in a boat, right? And this is not, obviously I have to say it. It's not the 3-hour tour. Okay, we did our Gilligan's Island reference. So my family has a little fishing cabin that we inherited from our grandfather on a very pretty little lake in Wisconsin. And it's in a very rural area. So it's like Mayberry RFD, Andy Griffith reference. And, right. So, and especially back in the 70s, when I was just a kid. It was super rural, right? So here's what happens. It's the beginning of summer at the lake. We're going to be there for a whole week. It's a kid's dream come true. We're the cabin, and then you just run down this little hill and you just jump off the dock into the water, fishing, swimming, everything you can imagine, everything a kid could dream of. Day one, I am getting into a rowboat, and these rowboats are a little bit rickety. And this one is metal, and it has rivets on it, of course, as a rowboat might. And what do I do in my bathing suit, having only been in the lake for 20 minutes? I'm messing around like an idiot, and I fall out of the rowboat in shallow water. But on my way out of the rowboat, I catch my thigh on an open, rusty rivet. And it makes a slice that is extremely deep into my leg, into the meaty part of my thigh, next to important equipment, Chris, that I have, and dangerously close. And so I didn't quite feel it at first until I got out of the water and then realized, oh my God, right? And then blood is just pouring down my leg, and my brother takes a quick look at it. And again, you may not, well, I won't go into super graphic detail, but to say that this was a deep cut was an understatement. It went really, really deep. So we're in the boondocks, right? And it's the weekend, and doctors' offices are not open on the weekend. I don't know what happens to people in these towns when someone gets hurt, but we had to drive about 50 miles or so. It felt like, maybe it wasn't that far, to this town called Siren. And we luckily found a doctor that could come help me. And he gives me a whole bunch of stitches. And then here's the greatest indignation of the whole thing. I can't put my wet bathing suit back on because you're not supposed to get the stitches wet, right?
Right.
So the only thing he can do with my naked body is wrap me up in the paper that they put on the table, right?
Oh my God.
That you sit on, right? The doctor's table or the examination table. So it's almost like like a giant toilet paper thing. And he wraps me up.
Seat cover.
I'm not joking, by the way. He wraps me up like a mummy in operating table paper cloth stuff. And so I have to exit this doctor's office, and it is the Dollar Days parade outside in this tiny little town. And by the way, Dollar Days is spelled D-A-Z-E. Okay, because they're crazy out there. Okay. So everyone in the town is out. That means all the cute girls that I would normally want to impress are watching me walking like a mummy, wobbling back and forth. I can barely move my legs as I get to the car, and I'm completely naked except for this giant, wrapping of toilet paper material. The most humiliating moment of my life I just could not get in that car quick enough. Please, God, take me out of this hell. And then, of course, Chris, like we talked about, the worst indignation for the rest of that summer, or not the rest of the summer, but for the rest of the cabin trip, I can't go swimming. I can't go in the water. Oh. It was the pain of that was way worse than the actual injury. So there you go. That's my number two.
Well, I mean, I think the abject terror you must have felt initially because of, let's just say, the general vicinity of the injury, but then and then you can get past, and then you have to deal with the pain, and you have to deal with but this is one of the cases where the what is it? The cure is worse than because you have to get treated for it, and then you get wrapped. I don't even know what that's called. What's that paper? Is it sanitary paper?
I don't know, but
they put it on that big roll and they just rip off a page, but you sit on it. And then as soon as you get off, they tear it off for the next patient.
Right.
I've never known of anybody to wear it.
Yeah, it's almost like white butcher paper or something.
Right. They can write that there's 2.5 pounds of T-bone steaks in there, right? With a grease pencil. I mean, it's just so. You paint such a great story because it got worse.
Oh my God!
It got worse than the injury, and then talk about you can't go swimming. So what are you going to do there, right? It's like, I'm just going to sit
Well,
and watch everybody else swim. And, like I said, it got worse. And again, the only thing that could have been worse is like the why, like then the car crashed on the way home or something, right? Another indignity after indignity after indignity just kind of piled on top of each other.
Knowing that I wasn't going to swim, I almost wished the car had crashed and just ended our lives. To me, that just was the end of the world. Watching my cousin and everyone else have fun and splash and play for the rest of that time there. And I'm just like sitting there.
Right.
And I'm too young to drink. Boy, would I have been drinking if I could. Well, shoot, that brings us up to number one. I can hardly wait. What was your number one here? I'm curious.
It was hard because I was kind of thinking, again, some of my injuries, again, a little bit repetitive, or just, it kind of, it's like maybe the self-inflicted ones or the unintentionally self-inflicted ones are the better story. But this one kind of but this is a bit of a callback to what we talked about in the last show. Because it involves pyrotechnics and it involves smuggled fireworks. And long story short, or short story long, lighting a firecracker, just like those ones that we talked about that were, about an inch long. And you can picture, it looks like a small, the color of like a roll of pennies, right? That sort of dark pink kind of firecracker with this long wick.
Yeah.
And not
I know the one you're talking about.
But our old friend Jonathan, his dad lived in Hawaii. So when Jonathan came back to once from visiting his dad, he had smuggled back a big wad of firecrackers. And so we took turns, we took him we lit him in the street. I think we took him to a nearby canyon and set some off, which again, in retrospect, not a great idea. We didn't, almost start a wildfire like you kind of almost did. But down to the last fire, and we would just light them and throw them up in the air and everybody would run. Down to my last firecracker. And so you knew the thing. It's like, so you lit it and you watched the wick would start to burn, and then it turned like bright orange, and it was like the fuse, I would say, right? The fuse, and it was like that Mission Impossible kind of thing where it was just burning down. And then as soon as it got close, you'd throw it and then pop it.
I like your plan so far. Very vague. Good.
So here again, Bic lighter in one hand, firecracker in the other hand. I go to light it, and as I light it, there's no music, okay? Because the music couldn't start, because this fuse, rather than like starting bright orange at and the fuses were about like 3/4 of an inch or an inch long, right? And like they burn down. This, rather than the tip being orange and then starting to burn, the entire fuse immediately turned orange. And it was as I've got it like held in, holy shit. And unfortunately, I'm paying attention, and I'm like, shit, and I go to just throw it up in the air and just open my fingers enough as it explodes. And
oh my God.
And then it was like, shit, this hurts. I mean, it hurt a lot.
Wow.
And it was and nobody was around. Nobody was home. I had found I had an extra firecracker, and my fingers were, but nothing, again, I didn't lose, nothing blew off.
Well, that's a close call,
wasn't
though.
really
oh my
burned,
gosh.
But it was numb. My finger and my thumb were numb for about a couple of days, to where I couldn't, again, I think it was something, so I didn't have to worry about, I couldn't hold a pencil. I had to, I spilled stuff because I forgot. I would try to grab a cup, and I'd go, oh, shit, and this had to be a secret. I didn't tell anybody, right? Because it was like I was literally playing with firecrackers with nobody home, lighting them off. Who lights off a firecracker? Why did I do that?
Well, who are you talking to? Me? I mean, yeah, I hear you. No, that makes sense.
And then had I, what if I had blown one of my fingers? What if I blown one of my fingers off, or the tip, or whatever? I don't know. As I'm home by myself, it's like, and would I have called for help? Would I have just let it be a little bloody stump?
I'm pretty sure you would have called someone. Yeah, that would have. Oh my God. That's one of those things where it's so funny, because I love the stories where the moment that you were throwing it or about to toss it was such a cool, happy moment. You're like, hey man, this is kind of cool. This is going to be fun. I'm going to toss it in the air. And going from that within a nanosecond to sheer terror, and then having that pain, is so funny how life can go, oh yeah? And then all of a sudden, everything is completely the opposite. Chris, I have seen so many photos, especially around 4th of July, of what happens to people's fingers and hands with when they throw an M80. You can't even believe. I mean, the carnage. So you really dodged a bullet on that one. And for those at home, a firework is very different than a firecracker. Firecrackers are gunpowder charges.
Gunpowder.
Yeah, it's like a certain portion of dynamite is what it is.
Right. And the one you said, like you mentioned that, the M80, which is a quarter stick of dynamite, which makes a loud noise and creates a lot of damage. But yeah, and I haven't told that story. I don't remember the last time I told that story because, again, it's a bit of a cautionary tale.
You were right to leave that for number one, because that is, talk about the near miss. That one, of all the stories you just told, that one could have ended disastrously. My brother famously tells the story of his friend that was in a similar situation, Chris. He had a firecracker in his hand, but instead of walking outside like a normal person, he thought it would be funny to light it and then stick it in a stick of butter that was on the dining room table. And the rest of his friends are like, "Are you insane? What are you doing? You can't, what do you think's going to happen next?" And only by the grace of God were they able to grab the stick of butter and throw it outside just before it became napalm and destroyed the stucco outside his house. But as kids, we don't think that way, right? You're just like, Chris, I would love to know what was going through your brain too when you had it going, and now where am I going to throw it? Like, even if your plan had worked, what did you think was going to happen with that firecracker? You were going to throw it where? In what direction? I was
going to throw it over the pool. Which then again,
okay, all right. Well, and actually, all right, that's not so bad. Okay,
with that, but let's go. Okay, Jeff. So now, number one, let's hear it for you.
So now, for this story, we have to go to the other side of the street called Madra. Now, as we recall from about 20 minutes ago, Madra is a hill that's just ominous for Chris and I growing up. This is the same hill that I just ate it on my skateboard and had road rash through most of my body. The other side of Madra, coming down the other side of the hill, it was a windy, snaky road and had lots of blind turns and went on and on and on. And really, a bicycle should not be on that road at all. It's barely enough room on that road for a car in each direction, and you really shouldn't even be on the road on a bicycle. Too dangerous. Not for me and my buddy Scott. Right, the same Scott that got me into trouble in all the last episodes. Scott had a bike route, not a bike route, excuse me, a paper route at like 5:30 in the morning, and he had spent the night at my house. And one of the things was, "Would you mind helping me on my paper route the next morning?" And so to do that, I had to actually go down the backside of Madra to his house to help him. Here's Scott and me at about 5 o'clock in the morning. It's still dark out, and we're hauling ass down this windy hill. And again, these are blind curves. The wind is stinging your eyes, and I am on a motocross type bike. I can't remember what it was called. And Scott is on a beach cruiser, right?
Okay.
And because he's got the big basket in front, and this is what he uses for his paper route. Scott is ahead of me. He's more of a daredevil. He's not even slowing down. He's just hauling ass on these turns. And I hear, as he takes a blind turn and I can no longer see him anymore, I hear, "Ooh," right? And I can hear the clanking of his bicycle, just the cartoonish sound of him eating shit. I knew all the sounds, right? A human rib cage hitting the cement, that's a sound, and the clanking of the bike. And sure enough, Chris, as I come around that blind turn, I now see Scott for the first time. He is not doing good, man. His bike has spun up into somebody's driveway, and apparently he ate it, and he is on all fours in the middle of the road, and his exposed rib cage is right in front of me. I had every opportunity to either veer left or veer right or do something other than what I did. And as Scott is on all fours, he sees me coming, and the look on his face, knowing what an idiot I am, and I'm not super coordinated, he knew what was coming. And here's what was coming. My front tire perfectly into his rib cage as he's trying to crawl to the gutter. That's what happened. Chris, I didn't even have any instinct. My brain aimed for his rib cage. I don't know why I didn't go left or right. And so what happens? I completely gun it into his rib. He's in extreme pain, and I go end over the top of my bike. And then I'm making the same sound, the sound. And again, here comes the road rash. Madra is so famous for dishing out the road rash. My elbows, my arms, the side of my neck. Now it's just silence. There's no cars on the road. You might be able to hear a mourning dove off in the distance. Here's what you hear. The moaning and groaning of two people that if you didn't know better and closed your eyes, you would think it was a grizzly bear attack that had just taken place. And Scott, as he's still trying to crawl towards the gutter, right? He's just looking at me like, why? You motherfucker, why? Why would you hit me? You had so much road in either direction. Oh my God, it was so bad. We laid there for about 15 minutes before we could finally pull our sad carcasses off the road and just try to, walk our bikes the rest of the way. And luckily his dad was nice and drove us on the bike route, but holy shit, oh my God, that one hurt for weeks. I mean, I may still have injuries on that one. I twisted things in all the wrong directions. But Scott never forgave me. I mean, he just never forgave me for that. There you go. That's my number one.
Again, it had so many parts to it, right? It's a tapestry, that story, and
yeah,
it's worse than. Is it worse than setting him on fire?
He asked me to set him on fire. That's not my fault.
Okay, so then make it. So I guess it is, because that was not intentional.
But I mean, look, as I'm looking back on this list and summing up this episode, and I'm still not sure how Joanne Worley and Charles Nelson Riley made it into the episode, but God bless them for their guest appearance. But everything on our list, Chris, is so 70s and 80s, right? Baseball, bikes, skateboards, boats, and firecrackers. I mean, if those aren't the most common suspects for injuries back in the set, and balconies. Good Lord. I mean, I think we really did justice to the 70s and 80s. I think the only thing we were missing was eating shit when you were jumping on a bike ramp to emulate Evel Knievel. I may have been forgetting a few of those stories, but
skateboards, we had skateboards.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're right. We hit it all unintentionally. Without listeners, without either one of us knowing really specifically what the other was going to talk about.
For those at home, this was an extended episode, but I hope you enjoyed, going through this drama with us. I know it's kind of been therapeutic for me to get it out in the open after all these years. I still don't know whatever happened to my buddy Scott, but hopefully he's doing well and wherever he is. So, Chris, what do you think, man? Until next time.
Till next time, Jeff.